Hey everybody out there, welcome team to the first ever episode of Big Nick, Big Leadership, because the world needs leaders. Thank you for tuning in. If you guys are currently checking this out, I really appreciate the support and hope everything is good in your world today. Let me tell you, it has been an exciting week. For me, have I dealt with some bosses? Yes. Have I dealt with some leaders? Absolutely. Have I dealt with some managers? Yes. Have I been all of those things in the same time? Yes, I have. But let me tell you, tonight we are going to explore just that. We're going to be exploring the boss versus the leader versus the manager. Now, is it a fight to the death? Is it a death battle? Absolutely not. It is basically just a time to explore what each of these mean, and we're going to go through how those different titles or different roles affect the workplace, and how as new leaders you can shape the style by which you want to you want to lead your team. So look, a couple people already in the chat. What's up, Jesse? What's up, Daniela? Thanks for tuning in. This is really exciting. I hope you're going to enjoy our show here. So tonight we are talking about the boss versus the leader versus the manager, okay? But this is a great time for everybody tuning in or watching on the back end. Please subscribe to Big Nick, Big Leadership on Facebook, or also you can check us out on YouTube. This video will be going to YouTube once we're done with this one. Had trouble going live at the right time, but here we are, learning how to do this stuff for the first time. So episode 1 will go live, will be recorded and on YouTube. Anyway, if you're watching this right now, before I lose you, let me get right into the big thing today, okay? So we're going to be talking about the boss versus the leader versus the manager. Now, I want to say that typically when people are describing a boss and they're describing a leader, there tends to be a positive slant on the leader. Now, that's not necessarily what I'm going to be talking about today. That's not what I'm saying. I'm not saying it's bad to be a boss. I'm also not saying that a leader is always, positive and happy-go-lucky, okay? It doesn't mean that if you're in charge, that it's bad. It also doesn't mean that if you're a leader, you have to be a softie. So I'm just gonna, and you might be like saying, well, where are you coming up with all this stuff? So let me get into the presentation today, and then you can decide for yourselves, okay? So what we're gonna talk about, let's start over here. We've got the presentation on what I like to call the boss versus the leader versus the manager. Let's start with some definitions. So first thing is a boss. A definition, this is taken straight off just definition online, so you can check it out anytime if you want to fact check me. But this is the boss, a person in charge of a worker or organization, a person in control of a group or situation. Pretty straightforward. I don't see anything good or bad. I just see an actual title, so I think that that's fair. Next, a leader. This is described as a person who leads or commands a group, organization, or country. Interesting. Doesn't seem to be much of a difference there in the first definition. Let's go to the second part of a leader. A person, organization, or company that is most advanced or successful in a particular area. I'm going to propose to you today that part of, I think, the stigma around the boss versus the leader is that the boss tends to be the person in charge giving orders. However, the leader tends to be the person that has a ton of experience and is out in front, and they're still possibly doing the same thing that everybody else is sort of doing, or they've worked their way up. And so the leader carries a natural ability to influence other people's behavior. I think that if you take the boss and you take the leader right away, you see that defining a leader says that that person is the expert, right? So you have the boss who is in charge, but you have the leader who is the expert. Can that cause conflict? Potentially, and that's where we're going to start here today. A manager. Now, next one here. A manager is a person responsible for controlling or administering a part of a company or a similar organization. A person in charge of the activities, tactics, and training. So, again, that says something different to me than a boss and a leader. So I want you to leave this presentation tonight feeling like, okay, I think I get it. that the boss versus the leader versus the manager, they're three different things. Are there overlaps? 100%. We're going to cover that stuff in just a second. So let's go back to here. I like to try to bring things together so that you can simplify everything. I think part of my success over many years of working with people has been to simplify and to create bite-sized ways of understanding things. Because if you're like me, you have to understand what you're doing. You got to break it down in your head so that you understand, what is the goal? How do I get, positive results out of this? So I'm going to break it down into a couple keywords for each of the positions. So if you're a boss, I say the boss equals in charge. I'm giving you, this is called Big Nick's big picture for the week, okay? So the big picture is actually a crossing guard. Now, this crossing guard, we would say, is a figure of authority. This is a person who is directing traffic. They are, for lack of a better term, giving orders. Is that bad? No, that's their job, right? And you as a pedestrian, in this case, so you can see the people crossing the street here, are following the orders or the authority of the crossing guard, right? So that, I think, is a good example of someone who's in charge of a situation, and their job in this case would be to keep people safe. So this crossing guard doesn't have influence, doesn't know what you had for breakfast, isn't your best friend. I mean, maybe you know the crossing guard, that's great, but the crossing guard doesn't necessarily know you as a person, but is there to guide you along and give you instructions on how to make sure that you cross the road safely. So we would call that a boss, okay? In charge. They are in charge of this area of the street, of the crosswalk. They're in charge. All right. Now here's an example of a leader. Remember, the leader is in front, or perhaps we would say the expert in the area. So in the picture on the left, you can see that there's a group of motorcyclists, and it appears that, I can't tell if this is a small child or if it's some person with a poncho on or what's going on here, but the person has dismounted from their bike, gone over to help this person cross the street, and you can see that the people behind him or her, whoever this motorcyclist is, have stopped out of respect to allow this person to cross the street. Where's the leadership in this picture? Well, you can see that this person who is leading literally in front of everybody else, as they came to a stop, everybody behind them came to a stop. You can also see that they are, in this case, I would call this leading by example. They are taking it upon themselves to make a situation better. If you were to call this a boss situation, I suppose you could say something to the effect of the person would have stayed on their motorbike and yelled at the person, get out of the road or cross the street. I'm not saying that, again, the boss, that makes it sound negative, right? But basically, in this case, they are showing leadership by taking initiative and getting out in front of the situation, causing everybody behind them to follow their lead. But they have basically put themselves in the position of having to make critical decisions, okay? Now, over to the right-hand picture. I'm sure this is something a little more familiar here in Canada. Right now, in fact, probably a month and a half ago, you got the mama duck and you got the baby ducks, okay? You know the baby ducks are following the mama duck. So when you ever see a duck wanting to cross the street with the baby ducks, very cute, by the way, the mama duck has to decide when is it a good time to cross that street, knowing that the babies are going to follow her across the street, right? So in this case, the duck is putting themselves in front. They're putting themselves in harm's way in order to lead their ducks across the street. So again, the leadership, we would say in this case, the mom is the expert in this situation, okay? They have the experience, the know-how, and the ability to get their team, we'll call the ducklings the team, across the street, okay? Cool. Does that make sense? Great. Everybody nod. Just kidding. Okay. Now, we have then the manager. What is a manager then? I would say the word for manager is process. Okay. Oh, you know what? I didn't do that right. The leader, the word for leader, is the example. They're the expert. They're the one out in front. They're the one showing you how to do things, okay? The manager is the process. As in, the manager has to decide what has to happen, when it has to happen, and who has to do it. But that doesn't make them a boss or a leader. Generally speaking, the manager would be in a position of authority because they have to then direct other people around them. Does that make sense? So this picture, what we have here, appears to be some kind of a protest. Now, I want to focus in on the lady in blue here. I think that's a lady, okay, in blue. And beside her, we have someone else dressed in black, okay, with the white hair. And they're basically, I'm calling this a managerial picture because what this person is doing right here is they are making sure that the right people are in the right place and that this person, friend, or maybe it's wife or mother or whatever is happening here, they are managing the processes around that person. As in, they're saying, okay, I've got to get you from here to here. We got to do this safely. We got to make sure that the right protocols are in place. If you were to take this into the workplace, you would be saying that, this person's job is to, make sure that this person here is able to get where they need to go. And that is a managerial process. So I hope I've established at this moment the difference between a manager, a boss, and a leader. So let me just quickly review super fast. The boss is in charge. And I think where we get the negative connotation about the boss is that there isn't necessarily something about the boss that inspires people to follow their orders, or there isn't something about the boss that makes people admire them other than the fact that they're in control. They are in charge. They are charged with having to, do this, be at, calling the shots. The leader is the example. I think you see the pictures of these leaders, in this case, the mama duck and the person helping the other person cross the street. And what you get from that is that the leader is putting themselves out in front. The leader is the example. The leader is going to show you what it is you need to do. The manager could be either one. The manager has to make critical decisions about what's going on, but they don't necessarily have to give orders out, and they also don't necessarily have to do those things themselves. So they're not either a leader or a boss, but they could be either one. So I think what I want to do now is take the word manager and say that it could apply to either one, because you can be an awesome manager. You can be a great boss / great leader, but a manager could be a leader, and a leader could be a boss, and a boss could be a manager. So they're kind of interchangeable. Hey, Jessica just tuned in. Thanks for stopping by. Hopefully everybody's enjoying the show. This is great. Let me just check on quick how many viewers we have. How many people? 3 people are on there. This is so great. Thanks for keeping up with us. I love it. Okay, so we're moving on in the presentation here. So we're going to the next part. I call this part common perceptions. And this is where I think I can explain my week from a couple neat standpoints. I'm not going to tell any stories yet in fear that the people may be watching. Just kidding. We have boss versus leader. The common perception here is that the boss sits up here and is barking orders down to the people here that are pulling they're calling it the mission here. Okay, so they're trying to advance the mission forward to achieve results and success. They are the boss is on top, and he or she is telling the crew what to do. But you can see that in this picture, the boss isn't really doing anything except for telling them what to do. Now the leader down here in this picture, basically the leader is out in the front doing exactly what the other 3 people are doing. Okay, and so therefore I guess I would ask you this question, and this is where we start to establish the difference between you developing yourself as a leader and you being the boss. Because here's what I can do. I could give you a shirt. Okay, let's say the shirt said manager. Okay, let's say you worked at Subway. Okay, and you report to work one day, and the owner of the store says, "Hello, Susie. Today, you're the boss. So here's the shirt, and the shirt says boss or whatever, manager or executive, whatever you want. So basically, you are now in charge. Do you have any sway with the employees whatsoever? As in, if you go in there today with a shirt that says boss, and let's say there's a bunch of rookie employees that are there, are they going to follow what you tell them to do? Well, kind of, probably. And to some extent, I guess they should, right? Because they see the boss. And so they go, right, yes, right away, boss, we'll do the things that you ask us to do. However, imagine I didn't give you the shirt and I said to you, I want you to get these people to follow your leadership. What's the best way to do that? Is it by sitting up here? So at Subway, is it going over to the cash and yelling at people to serve the customers? Or is it to be the first one to serve the customers and then guide your team through it and show your team, you know what, I'm willing to go out in front and do what needs to be done in order to be effective out here, okay? So I think one of the places that people make mistakes. Oh wait, is that why I'm getting text messages? Oh, I can't see any pictures. I see. You can comment on Facebook, and if you comment on Facebook, because I'm looking at Facebook while I'm doing the presentation. Thank you. Okay, how far did we go back? Let's see. Wait a minute. Okay, wait. We're gonna test the Facebook. We test Facebook. Okay, you ready? Did you guys see all this stuff? The in charge example process. Comment if you saw it on Facebook. Anybody there? Anybody still there? We still there? Give me a thumbs up. Somebody give me a thumbs up or a no. A yes or a no. It's too late. I've lost everybody. What's the views? We're down to 2 people. Somebody. All right, you know what? It's all good. So here's the deal. I'll jump back. So just to quickly, there we go. There it is. Nope. No. Nope. Didn't see any of it. You see, this is why we're trying this stuff out. It's good. That's all right. It's okay. Okay. So good. Wow. What a train wreck of the first one, right? It's good. Hey, you know what? We're in this together. Let me start really fast, give you like 10-second overview, and then I'll get you right back there. Okay. By the way, I'm going to publish this, and then I'm going to redo this episode so that everyone gets the right stuff. Okay. So here we go. We got boss versus leader versus manager. Boss, keyword, in charge. Crossing guard, in charge. Calling the shots, making people cross the street. Leader, by example. The leader's in front. The leader is the one that sets the tone through their behavior, okay? So here you've got person helping other person cross the street, and you got mama duck over here with the baby ducks. They would be considered putting themselves in harm's way. We would be considered putting themselves in a position where they have to make the decisions, okay? Good. Manager, managing the processes, okay? As in this person in the protest. So this was, you must have really been like, what in the world is he talking about? Lady in the blue? Is it a lady? Is it a man? Anyway, so you got this lady, I think it's a lady over here trying to get through the protest, and you've got this person. I'm calling this person the manager because they're trying to get that other person through the situation by managing the processes around them. So is everybody safe? Does she have all of her belongings? Where are we going? So the manager has to basically, get from point A to point B, create a process to do that, and then get other people to actually follow that. Now, is the manager good, bad, ugly? No, not necessarily, okay? The manager is there. The manager is basically a function, but whether you're a boss or a leader depends on how you use your management, okay? Back on track. So here we go. The pictures of the boss versus the leader, okay? We have here The boss sitting up, the leader's in front. Boss, leader, boss, leader. I gave you the subway thing. So I said, would it be better if I gave you a shirt that said boss and then said, go tell everybody what to do? Or would it be better if I said, go show everybody what to do? I think that's the point I'm trying to make here, is that a leader will therefore inspire the other three to work just as hard because that person is out in front setting the example. Great. Now, here we go. Here's the second one, okay? Here's another picture from Business Teamwork. So basically, you've got on the left-hand side, you've got the boss who's up at the top of the mountain going, woo, we did it. We're at the top of the mountain, hooray. But you can see that everybody on their side is either falling off the mountain or is sort of leaning back or sweating. I think one of them is sweating, or maybe that's hair. And the other one is reaching up, but the boss is up there being like, nah, I'm here by myself at the top. Woo, woo. Okay, great. Now, over on the right-hand side, though, you have the leader who clearly is coming up with a strategy not only to get up the mountain safely, because there seems to be some rope here, but he also, or she, is finding ways to get the other people up the mountain with them, okay? And you'll notice that they're pausing here to make sure that they're supporting their team as they get up the mountain. Again, leader in front, most dangerous position, most difficult jobs. Leaders are the ones that are going to take those on. Why? Because when your team sees you do that, they're going to want to do it like you. They're going to say, wow, they really go that extra mile to make sure that we're safe or to make sure that we're supported. Whereas the boss might be at the top of the mountain taking credit for the fact that the team got up there, and really, well, we had some casualties along the way. Just a dangerous situation all around. WSIB is going to be all over that one. Okay, great. So here are some common perceptions of the boss versus the leader. And I want to stress, it's really important. It's not bad to be a boss, okay? To be in charge, it's not bad. We tend to, again, have it in a negative connotation because it implies that they're giving orders, but they're not necessarily doing the things. And I think that this generation of people, myself included, really value that someone who's going to ask you to do something can either show you how to do it or can coach you through it. I think the word coach is more synonymous with a leader than a boss is, okay? But let's just quickly look at this one. So we have differences. You got boss drives employees, depends on authority, inspires fear, and says I, as in I did this, I want this, okay? Places blame for the breakdown, knows how it is done, but doesn't necessarily show you how it's done, which is on the other side. Uses people. I don't like that because the whole thing is, if you're in a situation where you are in charge or you're a supervisor or whatever, I mean, you've been tasked with getting people from A to B, whatever the task is or whatever the job is. I think it's not really fair to say uses people, although perhaps there could be bosses or even leaders, I suppose, who use their influence in a negative way so that it can be construed that they're using people. But using has a really negative connotation, as in you're just, people are a commodity to use up, as opposed to people are a resource for you, right? They take credit, command, and they say go, whereas if we flip this over to the leader side, the leader would say, let's go. Okay, they would ask, they give credit, they develop people as opposed to using people. Show how it is done, fix the breakdown, says we, generates enthusiasm, depends on authority, the leader depends on goodwill. The boss drives employees, the leader coaches them. So I think you should think back, if you can, in your mind to a time where you've had a boss and a time where you've had a leader, okay? So, and going to the example of crossing the street, the person yelling at the old lady to cross the street versus someone who will go out there and help them get across the street is the difference between a boss and a leader, okay? There's a sense of entitlement that also comes with being the boss, and that's a bit dangerous because just because you're in charge, it doesn't mean people will do what you say, okay? And I think that what I want to stress Before I do that, I'll come back. What I want to stress here is that the negative connotation from the boss versus the leader, I think, comes in the very first points here. The boss depends on their authority. So I want to challenge you to think about this. If you're being moved, if you're a new leader, if you're new to the workforce in the sense that you are being thrust into a position of authority, ask yourself, do I want people to listen to me because I'm the boss? Or do I want people to listen to me because I know what I'm talking about? Because also, remember, if you get promoted, if you get put into a leadership role, chances are someone above you, some senior position, is looking at you and saying, you've got talent, or you've got the ability, or you really know what you're doing, and I'd like you to take control of this group and continue to do those things. You could also, though, be hired into a position of authority. You could be hired as a manager, which is fantastic. So let's say you're hired as a manager. Well, the thing with that is, great, good for you. You're the manager. You're the boss. But so what, right? Are people going to do what you say? Well, at first they will, because you're the boss. But after a while, if you don't come out of the role of being a boss and start being a leader, I think what you will find, this is at least in my experience, what you will find is that people will not work for you. They will do as far as they have to because you said so. And then ultimately, as soon as you're not looking, they're going to do their own thing. So if you're looking for a cohesive workplace, if you're looking for a productive workplace, if you're looking for the type of workplace where your employees are happy, they show up on time, they show up early, they enjoy spending time there, they have positive things to say about the workplace, all of these things, this is part of you deciding to step out of the zone of the boss and be a leader. Okay. Now, can a boss be a leader? Absolutely. And I want to go to some questions that I think will help for new leaders if you're thinking about, hey, what does it take to be a leader? So question number one, what is the relation between boss, leader, and manager? I think that that's a good time to summarize. So boss equals control. The boss is in charge. The leader is setting the example, and the manager is the one who has to take the processes, put them in the right order, make the right decisions at the right time. A manager can be a boss, and a manager can be a leader. Hopefully that clears that up. Does being a leader mean that you're always nice or in a we frame of mind? I think this is one of the most important things that we have to understand as new leaders or as leaders in general. I want to use a quote, and I don't know who used it or created it, but the quote is, do not take my kindness for weakness. As in, just because I'm a nice guy, just because I'll hear you out and listen to you and be empathetic to your situation, just because I'm not barking orders at you, doesn't mean that I'm not in charge. And so some people have the idea that if you're not cracking down on your employees, if you're not barking orders, then all of a sudden they're going to start to do whatever they want and gets lax and this kind of thing. The flip side of that, the other side of the coin on that one, is that if you're always barking orders at them, then when you try to be nice, they're not going to understand. And also, they're probably not going to like you that much. I mean, just saying. So, but being a leader does not mean, being a good leader does not mean that you always have to be super sunshiny, okay? It does mean, however, that you have to understand how people work, and you have to be able to switch from happy-go-lucky leader to someone who has to have a candid conversation with somebody. So, as a leader, let's say you have an employee who steps out of line. Well, you have to deal with that. It doesn't mean that you don't deal with things because you're a leader, or it doesn't mean that because you're a nice person, you think everything hopefully is going to work out. There is definitely a balance between having to have candid and straightforward and transparent possibly disciplinary conversations with your staff and your team, and setting a positive tone for the workplace. There is a balance to that. How do you strike that balance? Well, listen, this is episode 1, and we're already getting up to the half an hour mark. So I guarantee you in future episodes, we're going to talk more about this stuff. That's what this channel is all about. If you have questions, feel free to shoot me a comment, or feel free to write me on Facebook or on YouTube, and I'll get back to you. We can even have a conversation about your current leadership situation. Next one. Does being a leader mean that you have to be a democracy or find consensus all the time? Aha! So, one of the things that being a leader means is usually you don't have to pull rank. I call it pulling rank, as in saying a phrase as follows. And by the way, I heard this phrase several times this week. I'm in charge. This is what we're doing. Well, if you have to say that, if you've gotten to the point where you have to say that, you've probably already lost the consensus behind you. Now, that doesn't mean that sometimes a leader doesn't have to make tough calls. Absolutely, they sure do. But it means that the way that you go about that and the way that you get people on board is going to depend on your leadership style. But absolutely not. Being a leader does not mean in any way that you always have to get everyone to agree. In fact, it goes both ways. The leader does not have to agree with everything their team is doing, right? Just because I'm a leader, it doesn't mean that what you do is always going to be bang on and I don't correct behavior that isn't correct. So there is a strength to leadership. There is perseverance, and you have to stick to your values as a leader. And I'll tell you the next thing on the next slide. But basically, you have to be clear about those things. You have to be clear about what your values are. And then you have to make sure that the people around you, whether they agree or not, are ready to carry out the task. Now, a boss, I guess the mentality, according to what we've covered so far, is something along the lines of, I don't really care what other people think. They do what I tell them to do. Yeah, right? I mean, you're not wrong. Now, the leader's mentality is, here's where I want to go. Here's how I want to get there. And I'm going to communicate that to the team. I'm going to be out in front. I'm going to make sure I do it first. And I'm going to get them to follow me. Does that mean everyone's going to do it? No. Does it mean there's more work involved? Honestly, yeah. Being a leader means there's a bit more work. Sorry. But you know what? That's the job we're in. Next one. Is it bad to be a boss? Is it bad? Sounds like a rap song. Is it bad to be a boss? Anyway, so is it bad to be a boss? No, it's not. It's not bad to be a boss. It's just depending on what your goals are, right? So sometimes as a leader, you might have to make a quick call, like something very sort of direct. It doesn't mean that you're not a nice person. But on the flip side, just because you are up there giving orders, it doesn't mean you're a bad person. It's just that in terms of creating a workplace that is positive, you get employee longevity, and you see that the fruits of your efforts are paying off with things like employee retention, succession planning, and all of those things. Those things really only come about when you start to develop relationships with your coworkers, with the people around you. And it's very hard to do that if you're up on a pedestal barking orders. That's my opinion. Feel free to disagree with me. Sometimes people need direct leadership, but I have found over the 20 years of my experience that most of the time when you give respect, people will give you respect back. And when your communication is on point, there's a much better chance that they're going to turn around and buy into your leadership, okay? So today was not so much to call one thing or another good, bad, or otherwise. But I do want to leave you with Big Nick's tip of the day. Whoop, there it is. Oh, no, sorry. First, we're going to do the quote. Tip of the day. Wait, hold on. Nope, that's it. This is it. My tip of the day is to quote the great John Maxwell, who, by the way, if you have a chance to read his books, fantastic. A number of them. I can provide you with resources on that. So today we're talking from John Maxwell's playbook. You can have any leadership style you want as long as you are consistent. Okay? What does that mean? Well, I will tell you a story. Let's do the story of the week. So here it is. In a company I used to work for not so long ago, in a distant land of sport, there were families there. You know what I'm saying? Anyway, there used to be me, and I would say that my leadership style was a very consensus-based, very easygoing, but also I had clear expectations. I'd like to think that my expectations were clear. Now, when it came to enforcing policies, and when it came to enforcing, say vacation times or very specific policies that related to things like, I don't know, uniforms or, you could name anything. If it wasn't safety, because safety is not negotiable. So for everybody out there listening, like if you have policies in your workplace that relate to things like safety, punctuality. I mean, there's a lot of stuff that's not negotiable. I mean, if you have people that are not showing up for work or you have people that are showing up late consistently, I mean, that's no good. You can't run a business that way. But if your policies on things like, let's say, vacation. So I had a counterpart of mine. Love the guy. In fact, he's one of the best leaders I know. And we used to have a joke. He was the hard ass. It's like good cop, bad cop. I was the good cop. He was the bad cop. What does that mean? It meant that when it came to something like a vacation, I had a couple times where I had an employee come to me and say, hey, I know that I'm not supposed to be away on this day for, whatever reasons, but I have this opportunity to go to see this concert, and I really want to see this concert because I've always dreamed about seeing this concert, and I really want to go. So my response would generally be, ooh, yeah, like that's a tough one because that's an important day. But I also understand the concert's important to you. And I would probably let them go, and I would probably come up with a solution with them to make that happen. My counterpart, one of my best friends still to this day, he would have been like, nope, sorry, that day is carved in stone. There's no way. Now, where am I going with all this? The point is, that's how I dealt with everybody. So whether you had been there for 10 years or you'd been there for, 2 months, I would have the same level of flexibility in my style as long as it was not causing undue hardship. But my counterpart would be equally a hard ass with everybody. So it didn't matter if he was managing me, who had been with him for 10 years in the business, or he was managing a brand new employee. The rules were the same. And so, what am I going with this? Does that make me a better leader than him? Absolutely not. He got amazing results. He built amazing teams. And at the other end, he had the same employee retention that I did. If not, maybe even better. Because people knew he was a hard ass, but he was always a hard ass. There was no in between. And you know what? As long as you're consistent, and that was what I said, as long as you're consistent, people will take you seriously and will buy into that leadership. So, hopefully you got something out of tonight's presentation on the boss versus the manager versus the leader. Hopefully we set up a cool new thing here, and stay tuned for announcement on what level or next, whatever I say here, episode 2 is going to be all about. I don't even know because I haven't planned that far ahead yet. I've got a whole list of stuff to cover. If you have any suggestions for topics that you would like me to cover, please, mention them in the comments or mention them in the comments on the YouTube page. But it's been fun hanging out with you this evening, and I will be going live every Friday at 9 p.m. Some weeks I'll have more stories to tell you, other weeks less stories and more presentation. But again, manager versus boss versus leader, ask yourself, who do you want to be? Doesn't matter to me as long as you're consistent, because remember, the world needs leaders, and if you're one of those leaders, you go out there and you make it happen. All right, hopefully you all have yourselves a great night, and we will see you again next Friday.